Let's clear up one thing. Breath of the Wild was all about replicating the success from 10,000 years prior and get rid of Calamity Ganon. However, the sealing of Ganondorf took place long before the first Calamity, which the imprisoned Ganondorf created.
So, could Breath of the Wild 2 be about repeating, or even surpassing the accomplishment from the battle in the distant past which sealed Ganondorf? And in this regard, who took part in sealing the former Gerudo leader, and are they depicted as the 8 heroines in Gerudo? Let's find out, but as always, to help more people see this great video and help us, press that like button and subscribe, as it's time to address the most important and overlooked detail inside Breath of the Wild 2.
Ganondorf, a king, a tyrant, and a monster. Ganondorf was all of these things, and throughout his attempts to take over Hyrule or set it in flames, he has been Hyrule's greatest evil and most hated individual. In Breath of the Wild's Hyrule, however, Ganondorf has, with the exception of one commentary by Urbosa, been completely erased from history and promptly replaced by Calamity Ganon or just Ganon. Breath of the Wild 2's reveal trailer changed all of that, and raised a number of new questions regarding how Ganondorf ended up trapped deep underneath Hyrule's surface. Many will say the Zonai, but there's more to that puzzle. But to get to the bottom of that, we have to go back to the distant past, and more specifically the origin of the statues of the 8 heroines. After deeper investigation, we don't believe that these represent the sages from Ocarina of Time, but rather something else that contributed to Ganondorf's fall and subsequent sealing.
The reason for this is the number of statues, 8. 7 that are found in Gerudo Desert and one at the very edge of Gerudo Highlands overlooking Hyrule Castle, where we know Calamity Ganon surfaced from and Ganondorf is likely sealed under. The number 8 is actually closely tied to Breath of the Wild and more so creating a champion. From it we learn that Hyrule of the era of the Wild consisted of 8 provinces. Central Hyrule, Gerudo, Hebra, Eldin, Akala, Lenuru, Necluda, and Faron. Looks like a promising start, but just wait as there's more. As Hyrule in Breath of the Wild has 7 races, Hylians, or what remains after the Great Calamity, Sheikah, counting Kakariko and the Yiga as one, Zora, Goron, Rito, Gerudo, and Koroks headed by the Great Deku Tree. In Breath of the Wild, all of these races work together in unison to aid Link in any way possible to reclaim the Divine Beast and increase his odds of defeating Calamity Ganon. No doubt that this is unprecedented in Hyrulean history, which is notorious for its civil wars between Hylians and Gerudo, Hylians and Sheikah, and Zora and Gorons.
Then what happened? In the ancient past, Calamity Ganon, but before it, in the distant past, Ganondorf. A common threat united all armed and unarmed factions, even Ganondorf's own tribe, the Gerudo. But why did they construct 7 statues, and another statue in a different location? Simple. To remember the ones who fought and survived, and the last who fell in the battle to seal away Ganondorf. But is this a reference to the event of the Downfall timeline where the Hero of Time fell, and then the rest of the 6 sages and Princess Zelda sealed Ganon away? Not necessarily, as there's a second possibility that the 8 heroines depict a different event, that of the latest sealing of Ganondorf. You see, when the Hero of Time fell in the Downfall timeline outcome of Ocarina of Time, Ganondorf extracted the Triforce of Wisdom from Princess Zelda and the Triforce of Courage from the corpse of Link, and united the 3 fragments to claim the complete Triforce. With it, Ganondorf transformed into Ganon, and to prevent the Demon King from wreaking havoc, the 6 sages and Princess Zelda sealed Ganondorf in the Sacred Realm. And this is the crucial detail and difference. The Sacred Realm which Ganondorf and Ganon was sealed away in the era of the Hero of Time, in both the Downfall and Adult Timeline outcomes of Ocarina of Time. In both cases, Ganon eventually broke free or were resurrected. The only exception is the Child Timeline, where Ganondorf was sealed in the Twilight Realm, and then after being killed by the Hero of Twilight, resurrected as a new Ganondorf just to be sealed as Ganon in the Four Sword. God knows how many times Ganondorf was resurrected this way after losing to numerous heroes over the ages. There was no way of preventing Ganondorf from returning until the people of Hyrule realized that the best option to keep Ganondorf away was to put him under a permanent seal, which Ganondorf on his own couldn't break free from. And it is this battle to seal Ganondorf deep underground Hyrule for tens of thousands of years and not in the Sacred Realm that we believe the heroines depict. In other words, an event and battle that is yet to be told in the Zelda canon, but which we partially can piece together by looking at the tease left behind in the heroine statues. 7 in Gerudo Desert and 1 in the Gerudo Highlands, overlooking, you guessed it, Hyrule Castle. We're here talking about long after the end of the traditional timeline, namely when the Hylians, Sheikah, Zora, Gorons, Rito, Gerudo and Great Deku Tree with Koroks all united against Ganondorf. In other words, the statues represent the races and districts of Hyrule. Then is that it? Well, it used to be in most Zelda games prior, but Breath of the Wild teased another race of barbarians, which disappeared long ago, but in return left a number of ruins behind, the Zonai.
But wait a minute, isn't the 8 heroine Ganondorf seeing that the Yiga worship that statue? No, since both Ganondorf and the Zonai likely fell into the same battle, and the Yiga might have misunderstood the statue, which is really meant to be of the Zonai who took part in the battle against Ganondorf, but fell along with possibly all the other Zonai who sacrificed themselves for the sake of the rest of Hyrule. Yes, we know you are sick of hearing about this race from us, but the more we go into this race, the more we realise their importance to the plot, premise and gameplay of Breath of the Wild 2, just as what was the case with the ancient Sheikah in Breath of the Wild. Also, why would the Gerudo want to commemorate Ganondorf with such a massive statue overlooking Hyrule Castle? Quite the contrary, the Gerudo were ashamed and wanted to write him out of their history. Thus, we see it more likely that the Gerudo built up the 7 statues to commemorate the 7 races who rose up and were victorious against Ganondorf. However, these statues are as important as the 8 statues, which in our opinion commemorates the sacrifice of the courageous Zonai. They died or went in underground to hold Ganondorf so the other tribes of Hyrule could live in peace. Fittingly enough, the 8th statue is the only one which overlooks Hyrule Castle. The only race that didn't survive until the ancient past, the era of the wild, but fell in the distant past, hence the sword being in a different location.
In conclusion, the heroine statues are war memorials built after the successful war against Ganondorf, or at least it's very likely that it is. In this case, the 8th heroine represents the Zonai race, which disappeared or fell in the battle against Ganondorf in sometime in the distant past. But why are all the statues depicted as female? Obviously, since the Gerudo are an all-female race, and so on, and that the Gerudo despise males, mainly due to Ganondorf. The statues are also a sign of appreciation, and why Hylian and Rito females plus Gorons are allowed inside the walls of Gerudo town. Remember, in Ocarina of Time, non-Gerudos had no access to Gerudo lands. Obviously, the Gerudo have been loyal allies to the Kingdom of Hyrule since Ganondorf was deposed, and that is why they are a target for both the Yiga and Ganondorf when the latter returns. Which brings us over to the potential final confrontation of Breath of the Wild 2. Since could the final battle in Breath of the Wild 2 be the Hyrule equivalent to the Battle of Waterloo, Napoleon against everyone, Ganondorf against all 8 races of Hyrule? It isn't as far-fetched as it might appear on the surface, as the first direct sequel in the same Hyrule and with the same Link and Zelda, which is more ambitious than anything else in the entire series, or at the very least surpass Monk Mast Koshia, after the embarrassment that was Dark Beast Ganon in Breath of the Wild.
Imagine all races of Hyrule fighting against the forces of evil for their own survival. And unlike the Calamity, this will not be a battle of 6 and slaughter of the rest. No, a war where everyone who can hold a weapon does his part in a confrontation with sacrifices to clear a path for Link and Zelda to end Demise's curse once and for all. Ganondorf, just like Napoleon, was supposed to be written out of history, exiled or sealed, but when he now returns and rebuilds his army, all races need to once again unite against the King of Evil for the last battle, and with it, the beginning of a new era for Hyrule and the Zelda series. The signs of the Ganondorf showdown in the distant past and upcoming confrontation might have been right in front of us the entire time in Gerudo Desert and Highlands. Giving purpose to old ruins appears to be a theme in Breath of the Wild, and what is better than giving a much deeper purpose to the 8 heroines, which screamed DLC 3 but was ultimately turned into Breath of the Wild 2. The number 8, the mystery of the 8th province of Faron and the 8th race of Hyrule.
Anyway, we loved our prolonged stay here in Gerudo, exploring the landscapes, landmarks, people, and tensions of this harsh but at the same time beautiful province. However, we need to continue our journey through the 8 provinces of Hyrule. But before we do so, let's mark the ones we have already visited: Faron, Akkala, Gerudo. Well, Lanayru, the land of the Zora, is next. 8 provinces, 3 down, 5 to go. So make sure to give a big like to this video and to not miss any of the upcoming provinces of Hyrule in Breath of the Wild 2 and Zelda Theories. Smash that subscribe button and notification bell for all notifications. Finally, we need to thank all our gracious patrons, which you can join on patreon.com/commonrom. Until the next video, enjoy these videos and we will see you in the next one.